each death a scar. Lost in the rubble, but never too far. I'll keep searching no matter how marred. Mining memories in an old wrecking yard.
Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all. Everyone is welcome here in the Church of Internal Combustion. We only ask that you show up with an open heart. We're not traveling that far back today, just back to 2018 and a little bit of 2019. This episode ought to be called, I Still Don't Know What I Want to Be When I Grow Up. Do any of us though? You know, who knows? Let's get a quick word from our sponsors before we get too deep. We have a new sponsor today here at Trip, the Wrecking Yard podcast. Blair Moore is a gearhead and a fantastic artist. Why am I holding my hand over there? He's going to be over here. Blair Moore is a gearhead and a fantastic artist who creates stunning lamps and bookends and whatnot out of old motorcycle parts. A lot of old 70s and 80s Japanese bikes, too. It's pretty cool. I love what he's doing, and one of these days, I am going to buy myself a pair of his piston bookends because they're really cool looking. And I think they might look good here on the set somewhere. I don't know. Maybe in the office. Anyways, I'll put a link to his shop, and there's the name of the shop where you can go find his stuff. It's really cool. Go over there and just check it out, man. He's being pretty creative. There's some really cool. Some of those lamps are cool as hell. Anyways, check out Blair Moore. Check out his art. And if you buy something, buy me something too. And of course, Wrecking Yard brought to you today by our good friends at the Everyone Racers podcast, who while you're watching this, I'm hanging out with. Everyone Racers is a podcast about amateur endurance racing from beginner to advanced, as well as the news, tips, and tricks that go along with the hobby. Four friends, often teammates, Chrissy Matura, Christopher Abbott, Tim Burr, and Christian Mental Ward, discuss current racing trends and news. They have so many great stories. Endurance racing is something that's kind of taken hold of my mind. And I'm being kind of honest. I've been keeping my eye out for a junker to throw in the mix, you know. Maybe that's what Sherry Case VW will end up as a livings racer. Slapping on top of a Toyota Yaris and go, baby. Anyways, those guys are great. You should definitely check out their podcast. I'm spending most of the weekend with them down at the racetrack in Angleton, Texas, and cheering them on and trying to be a good moral support, that good stuff. So I'm sure I'll have some fun stories when I get back from that. And of course, I'll always put a link to their podcast and everything as well. All righty. Man, I got some cool news. I don't know why I'm asking you. You can't tell me anything. There's no harder place to get respect than your hometown. Especially if you're a performer, any guys, musicians, comedians, that they'll tell you never get any respect in your hometown. Most of the time, the clubs here ignore me, you know, because they can't use me for cheap, and they'd actually have to pay me if they wanted to use me. And so, unless I'm just popping in for stage time, I pretty much get ignored here at home. And that's okay. Usually, though, I do 7 or 8 shows a year in Houston, but this year I've been so busy. I have not done a show in Houston. I have some little pop-ups here and there, and, you know, other people's shows I've jumped on, do a spot here or there. But I haven't done my own headlining show in Houston this year. And it looks like I just got one. The Punchline Comedy Club chain has been around for a very long time. I mean, there was a movie in the 80s, you know, with Forrest Gump in it, and I think Frog from Smokey and the Bandit. I can't remember her name. Sally Struthers? Nope. Sarah Williams? Nope. That's not even anybody. It's Sally something, I think. Anyway, they call her Frog in Smokey and the Bandit. Anyways, that's beside the point. That club and my manager have come to an agreement, and I'm going to headline that club the night before Thanksgiving. And I couldn't be any more excited about it. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping to sell a lot of tickets and really do well for them because they gave me a really good deal, really good door deal. So I'm hoping it goes well. I'm planning for it to go well. I'm going to be advertising a lot. You're going to hear a lot about it. You're probably going to get sick of hearing about it. But I am just beyond psyched for that. And some of you, if you're in the Beaumont, Sour Lake area, I'm going to be in Sour Lake next week, I think. Next week or the week after next. My buddy Barry Laminette, we're going to go back to the Revenant. Tickets are already for sale for that. Those will probably sell pretty quick. They don't have a lot of seats. Let's hope the Houston ones sell pretty quick too. So I'm really excited. So Punchline built a brand new club in Houston inside the old House of Booze, and they're kind of like co-owned by Live Nation, and or they're in partnership with Live Nation. So this gets me on the Live Nation roster too, and gets me on their radar. So this is a big thing. It's a really big thing. I'm really excited about it, and hoping it pans out in some good future work because they're everywhere. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about me some other time. When the story starts, it's well, I'll tell you this. In 2017, I had a business partner that turned out to be just as crooked as a son of 50 could be. And to be honest with you, I should have seen the signs on the wall because if I was being honest with myself, I knew the guy wasn't a good dude. I didn't know he was as bad a dude as he turned out to be, but I knew the guy did some things that got on my nerves and stuff like that. But he had a foundation repair company and he had some problems. He was going to have to retire at the time because he was having some health problems. And we made a deal. I had been doing some work with him over the years and really liked the foundation repair work. And we made a deal for me. I was going to buy his company and we were going to be partners till I got done paying him. And I was paying him a whopping $10,000 a month in order to buy this company, which was all fine and good until he went crazy after man, this is a whole nother story. This dude, what do you say? Paul Russian, crooked as hell, told me he got raided for tax problems, and then it was all over the news the next day that he got raided for child pornography. Which, if you can imagine, hurt the name of the business I was trying to buy. So, anyway, that dude did a lot of scammy stuff. I had to break away from him in November of 2017, and it got pretty heated and pretty ugly, and of course, all the threats old Vietnam vets will give you, But what the bottom line is, he had a pituitary gland tumor, and when your pituitary gland gets messed with, it makes you crazy. Like it'll make somebody go nuts, like completely off the deep end, nuts. And that's the long and the short. The long and short of it is he got greedy and went nuts, and we had to dissolute. Problem is, I had beat the piss out of my trucks running his business, and now I was having to start over from scratch, basically. And I didn't have no money to buy no more trucks. What I did have was a 1999 1-ton, the old, GMT 400 body style, 4-door. We called it, the guys that worked for me called it Long Bus Tarantula. It was a long bed, 4-door, 1-ton, 2-wheel drive Chevrolet truck, had old 350 in it. Wasn't nothing special. I'd bought it cheap. And it was a pretty solid truck when I got it, but my guys had just destroyed it. They had beat that pit. Young employees don't give a shit. If you've ever been in business before, you know that. And they had beat the piss out of this truck, right? None of the door. I had the doors. I'd fixed the doors myself, the hinge pins on the doors myself 2 or 3 times. Then I paid somebody that was supposedly really good at it to fix them. And the door hinges just kept going back to hell. And it'd be a week or two, and you'd have to lift the door up to shut the door. And of course, the guys wouldn't do it, so they'd drive around with the doors cockeyed. And then the doors would get worse because they were lazy. And God knows, what they were putting in it, who knows? I'd let one of them borrow it for a long time. And, of course, he just decided it was his. And you know how that stuff goes. Anyways, that truck was just about done, and I was starting my business completely over from scratch. And one night we were doing a remodeling job, and that truck gave up the ghost on the way home, full of crap, and it just wasn't worth screwing with anymore. And then I was just dependent on my little GMC C71. C71's not the best choice when you're doing a lot of concrete work and you're pulling concrete trailers. And I know everybody go, oh, 4060's piece of crap. Mine was great till I started pulling a concrete trailer with it. Maybe don't pull a concrete trailer with it, dummy, because all my 4060s lasted well over 200,000 miles. It wasn't until I started doing stupid shit that they broke, and they're easy enough to rebuild. So that's one of those things I don't get. Everybody complains about that. Ugh. But that truck of mine, it had so much remodeling debris in the back of that one ton that it wasn't going to be worth the tow bill to tow it anywhere. So I just left it and let it get towed away, and saved me from having to find a way to haul off all that crap, all that remodeling debris. It's probably crushed in the same junking yard. And honestly, having to start over from scratch is about to kill me, because if you remember, I fell off a roof in 2015, and I'm still recovering from that. And I didn't give myself enough time to recover because I had to go back to work. And so, of course, I've caused some more damage in my hip now, and I've caused some more damage in my ankle. And some days I'm having a real hard time walking. And that's a hell of a time to be trying to rebuild your business from scratch. I still had some good clients, but there was also a lot of division when me and him split, and some clients stuck with him even after what he got busted for. And to that I say, if you lie with dogs, you get fleas, or some shit like that. I seen that in the Bible one time, and I lied with that dog long enough to get fleas and realize I won't lie with dogs no more. But boy, I was in pain. I I quit pain pills a long time ago, but in early 2018, late 2017, if I could have got my hands on a Percocet about the size of a football, y'all wouldn't know nothing about me, because I'd probably just gnawed on that until I didn't exist anymore. I was in a lot of pain. So we go into early 2018. January is always a slow part of the year. January sucks. Never work. And if there is work, the weather's so bad it's hard to get the work done in the proper time. I hope y'all don't mind. I'm gonna have me a little drink. I got me some little projects. I don't know if you can see this giant box. I got some stuff to go out here. Yeah. And the cane. We got the cane. Right. Because that's how you get your whiskey. Come on, cane. Dump it in there. Hell yeah. Woo. Glory be. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ooh, it's good stuff. But work's slow. Some of the crew is still with me. Most of the crew's gone by that point. They couldn't stay through all that crap when you're going through all that. And I understood 100%. I cut every one of them loose with a smile, and But at the time, old Joel, my buddy Joel's still with me. Joel's a good hand. He's kind of running shit for me. And Cody, we call Cody Forklift. He's a big old ginger that can lift anything. And Cody's still with me a couple of days a week, whenever I got work for him and stuff. But they're looking for, I don't blame them. They're looking for other stuff because I don't have enough work to keep them busy at that point. I went from running nearly 2 6-man crews every day to having 1 or 2 jobs a week, if I was lucky. So it was, we ain't get rich, but, and honestly, this is kind of the time I start using a lot of subcontractors because I get tired of dealing with employees. It's a lot. It's dealing with payroll and all that stuff all the time is just, it's a lot. Uh, And, I'm starting to make a little money back. I ain't getting rich. I'm slowly starting to make some money again. The job's starting to pick up in early 2018 after the January slowdown. Things are starting to pick up and get excited. I actually picked up a huge job doing all kind of concrete sidewalks and redoing the boat dock, and I did just about everything structural, concrete work, foundation repair, drainage, and worked on a lot of bulkheads and boat docks around there because I had all the equipment to do it at the time. And once you kind of learn how to do that stuff, it's easy enough to do, and it's good money. You can charge good money for marine grade work to the people that'll actually pay for it. Honestly, though, if I'm being honest with myself, I was getting really frustrated with the business. I was getting really tired of dealing with the customers all the time. It was just a lot, man. I worked 7 days a week trying to keep us afloat. There was no holidays. If you've ever owned your own business, you know how it is. We've talked about that before. I had already been shopping for a replacement for the 1 ton, and so I kind of knew what I wanted. I knew I needed something to pull dump trailers with. I knew I wanted a 3/4 ton diesel, but at the point, the only Fords that were within my budget were the 6 liters, and everybody had a horror story about a 6 liter Ford diesel. And every diesel shop around in Montgomery County seemed like they had 4 or 5 of them sitting out there in the parking lot waiting to get fixed. So, and there weren't any Dodges in my budget unless it was just a clapped out shit box because Dodge owners are insane. Like the truck is garbage. The only thing good about it's a drivetrain, for Pete's sakes. Ooh, hot glue smells good. Give me a little whiff of that. Mm-hmm. Got me a little project to work on. So I had about 10. I had about 10 or 13 grand. No, I had about 13,000. I don't even need that whole box. Goddamn. Bunch of stuff needs to go here in the set and some old stuff. But I found my old box of belt buckles and stuff that I've been keeping all my life, and I'm fat and I don't wear belt buckles anymore. In fact, I don't even wear belts. I wear these little strap things that pinch my belt loops together and make me feel like I got a belt. I don't like belts. On my belly, you can't see a belt buckle. No how, but I do have all these really cool old belt buckles that I've worn off and on at different times in my life. This one's got a little buffalo in it and it moves. I like tacky rednecky stuff if you haven't figured that out. This is a little cowboy. Ooh, I've had that one since I was a little kid. This is a belt buckle. Used to have my initials in it. They broke out. My papa made this. Papa Clark made this for me. He got into, him and my Uncle Bobby got into gold plating and making stuff. And that's a belt buckle my Aunt Linda tooled and made for me a very long time ago. I was very young. That's a Coca-Cola belt buckle because that's just cool, man. It's something I've had since I was very young. The old Victor Weldon buckle. If you've been in welding any period of your life, you know who the hell Victor is. That is my Pinewood Derby car. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna set that right there. I bet that booger still wins some money. That is one of Uncle Bobby's harmonicas. Oh, all my Weebelows. I ought to do something with that. That's kind of fun. Another fucking buckle, kind of similar to the other one. An old state of Texas buckle, and another little buckle I had since I was a kid that I always dug. And another buckle I wore a lot as a teenager. It's just plain, but doesn't matter. Anyway, I thought it would be cool to make some little display for them. So I got this old Johnson bubble stick, old school yardstick. And I'm going to hot glue the buckles to that yardstick, and then it's going to hang up like that, and it'll display my buckles. I think it's going to be pretty daggum nifty looking, if I do say so myself. Fun way to display them, and a fun way to clean out a box. All right, back to the story. Sorry, y'all are always complaining though, because I'm not telling you what the hell I'm doing. So now I'm telling you. So I told you I had about 10, 13 grand to spend. And I started reading. I was talking to folks. I was trying to figure out what my best bang for my money was going to be. I had the GMC, the little Z71, right, GMT 800, and I've told you time and time again, it's one of my favorite trucks I ever owned in my life. It's one of the best vehicles I've ever owned in my life. So I went GM again, and I started shopping for a Dirty Max, and I wanted a GMT 800. I wanted one from those years, and at the time that was in my budget. I could afford one of those if I could find one in decent shape. There were some good ones. I passed on some more expensive ones. I really wish I had enough because the one I bought sure didn't do nothing but cause me grief about half the time. But I thought I knew what I was looking for. I had read as much as I could. You know, I'll tell you right now, I'm not a diesel guy. It's not where my knowledge base lies heavily. I've worked on a few over the years, but it's not where I know the most stuff. I should have just bought a gasser. But most of the 3/4 ton GMs had that 6 liter, and that thing is a piece of shit. As far as my experience with the 6 liter GM engine has been, it was garbage. I'd take a 5.3 over that 6 liter any day of the week. But I got out. I thought I was looking for a 2500 HD with 4-wheel drive and either a manual or Allison transmission and Duramax. And I went and looked about 12 trucks seriously in between. Because what happened is in early April of 2018, we were in the middle of this big concrete job. And we were like finishing it up too. So it was all the haul off. And I was hauling that concrete truck, that dump trailer, and I blew the transmission to pieces in that daggum C71. And it had some other little problems with it at the time, and I just didn't have time to stop everything I was doing. And everybody's like, "Why didn't you work on it yourself? Why didn't you fix it yourself?" People ask the same thing about this. Well, why do you work on it yourself? You know how to do stuff. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been a contractor before. There's no time to work on stuff yourself. You cannot afford to take a day or two to go work on a truck because that's a day or two you're not making money and you're not making payroll. So that's why I didn't do it myself. And I went out, I looked about 12 trucks, seriously, in between trying to run my jobs out of Rachel's Yukon at the time, which was damn near impossible. And I looked at a couple that were okay and they weren't too bad, but they were on the high end of the value side. And I knew that if I spent all the money I had to buy one, then I'd be screwed if something went wrong with it or whatever, Or if we had a rainy week and I had to make payroll on a rainy week, where we couldn't get a lot of money in. But I found one in the Woodlands, and the dude was pretty sharp. He knew diesels clearly. I spoke to him a couple times on the phone before I went over and looked at it. Supposedly, his story was he had just started building another LB7, and this was just his daily. But he had replaced the injectors, and he had a copy of the readings and the test. And I went and test drove it. It had a little smoke, but the thing was clean inside, and it ran pretty good. It wasn't no speed demon, but that's not what I was looking for. And it had the Allison, and it had the 4-wheel drive. And the 4-wheel drive worked great on it, which was a lot of the problem with those old GMT 800s, those 4-wheel drive selector switches going bad and whatnot. And it only had 112,000 miles on it. I thought. I fell for his bullshit. That's what happened. Because me and him went back and forth, and I can't remember if I paid him $7,500 for it or $8. I think maybe I paid him $8 before you get all worked. I mean, this is pre-COVID prices, And at that time period, the premium on those trucks was about 12 grand. They were not going super high dollar yet. Now you can't touch a GMT 800 for 12 grand. Doesn't seem like. I'm sure they're out there. I fell for his bullshit. I thought at the price point I was doing okay. You know, I didn't think I got no like super big deal, but I also didn't think he got over on me. And especially having those balance sheets and the injectors changed in it, because that's all I had read about that truck was the injectors were a problem, and everybody was, buy one that's already had the injectors done. That was the big, that was the big hit on those things, was the injectors. It was expensive work. But I'm telling you, I bought that truck and I took it home and immediately went back to work on my jobs. And I pulled I maybe put 300 miles on that truck. And that damn thing started throwing codes, lit up like a Christmas tree. Went into limp mode, and all of a sudden his phone number didn't work anymore. In fact, I couldn't even find that dude. I got a picture of him, though. I got a picture of him. One of these days, we may just bump into each other. When you get in a situation like that, you don't really know what to do. I went and bought myself a scan tool, started running all the codes on it and started trying to diagnose it, reading on the internet. And it was stumping everybody I was talking to in every forum. But I could turn lip mode off and it would smoke a little bit but still get the job done. She's going through a ton of fuel and was kind of a gutless wonder after about 50 miles an hour. But, I wasn't pulling a trailer at more than 50 miles an hour. And at those speeds, she was doing the job. And this is the part everybody's going to argue with me about. And I've tried to explain it to a couple people over the years. I said it in a truck astrology, and oh boy, diesel bros came mad about it. But at the time, this is 2018, remember, everybody was buying diesel. Every diesel shop in Montgomery County was backed up for weeks with work. And every one of them I spoke to told me they were going to pull the cab to change the injectors. And that was one of the reasons it made it so expensive. Now everybody says you can do it, no problem. Blah, blah. All the old GM techs are like, yeah, you can do it, no problem. That pulling the cab. And I believe them. And that only the Power Stroke is the only one you have to do that with. But at the time, that is what every shop I spoke to told me. Every one of them told me, we're gonna pull the cab. That's how we're gonna fix this. And whether they were good shops or not, I don't know. A lot of them were fly by night, popped up. Montgomery County had all of a sudden there was diesel shops everywhere, but they were all too busy to do any work for them. And I couldn't afford to set my truck up for a couple of weeks to go sit parked at a shop and wait for them to get time to jack with it, while I was trying to make a living. But everybody was buying diesel and nobody knew how to work on it. And I was one of those idiots that bought one. And I paid two of them shops to diagnose and like go in and look at the truck and all that good stuff. And both those shops came back and told me that those injectors were all screwed up. And then I found out his balance sheets were bullshit because they ran the test on them and showed me again, and the injectors were not working properly. And now that I've learned a lot more about those injectors and the guys that build them and everything, I realized there was a lot of scam artists running around then. And I got burned. Not only that, the CP3 was going bad too. The thing was pulling so many different codes. And I don't know who was lying to me at that point. I don't know if the shop was lying to me or if the shops really back then thought they had to pull the cab or they were just telling people that because they didn't want to take on the job because they had enough work. I don't know. But I guarantee the kid had been lying to me because after I saw the new balance sheets, I realized this dude was full of crap. In fact, the only thing that wasn't pulling codes on that truck was that Allison transmission. The Allison transmission was doing the job, baby. I never got a single, any kind of drivetrain codes or anything like that further back in the drivetrain. And every shop I spoke to gave me an estimate between about $7,000 and $9,000 to fix it. And the truck wasn't worth that at the time. Now, knowing what I know now, I might should have put the money into it at that time. So I was just kind of stuck. I made a bad decision. I bought a bad. I got taken for a ride on it, and I did the same thing most of us do. We find ourselves in a situation like that. I just kept driving the damn truck every day. I had to work, and I knew I really had to make another nut if I was going to be able to fix this truck. And I had my other bills and stuff were piling up because work had been slow back early in the year. So I just used that scan tool. Every time that truck hit limp mode, I'd back it right out of limp mode and truck on down the road. You know what I mean? I got so good I could do it one handed while I was driving down the highway. An old truck smoked like a house on fire going down the road. It was only when you floored it would dump, it would roll coal, as the kids say. I remember I was getting on a freeway one time, and there was a HPD officer right behind me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was going to have to speed up to get on the freeway, pulling that trailer, and I launched off that thing, and it coated that cop car in black smoke, and I was like, "Here we go. Go ahead and pull me over." And he pulled up beside me and stared at me for a minute, and then shot off down the road, still with black crap all over his car. I thought I was going to jail. So sometimes you just try to make it work. You just go with what you think is the best way to go about doing things, and that's what I did. I really just decided, okay, well, I've got to make a go of this thing, and I got to do the best I can, and this is the way I got to do it. Wasn't ideal, but sometimes it's what you got to do. Also, around this time, I just started this big project in this neighborhood where I was dealing with a dirty HOA. I mean, a dirty, money grabbing HOA. And they kept revoking our permits. They would make up all kind of reasons why they changed their mind and revoke the permit. And we would go back and get it fixed, and then they would revoke it again for something else. And it just was, they were just trying to get money out of the homeowner. But I stopped bringing any subs to the job because I was losing money on it. Because every time we get working, somebody come over there and shut us down. And if you know anything but trying to make a living as a contractor, that ain't super profitable. And the subs are getting kind of fed up with it, and I don't blame them. And so most of the time, it's just me and Joel out there working on the framing and stuff. It was a big old deck project, and we were going to do all kinds of stuff with this guy, all kind of concrete work and everything. And he's one of these lake houses right on one of these canals, and the house was moving and had problems. It had this huge concrete retaining wall that was like 8 or 9 foot high, and we were going to be building the deck off. It was a whole thing, and it would have been cool. It would have been cool. But HOA started screwing them around, so we just dialed back. I said, I'll just continue doing the framing on it while you're paying us, but until you get this HOA straightened out, I can't really do no more for you. And that's all right, but except one day, me and Joel were carrying a bunch of lumber, big old 2x12s, long 2x12s, across the top of that retaining wall, and the lumber shifted. I lost my balance and fell off the retaining wall. And not fall like, it was one of those things where I lost my balance and I just kind of flipped forward, hoping I'd land on my back or my butt. After my last roof fall, I was kind of scared of falling. Wanted to make sure I landed good, but it was grass, so I wasn't worried. What I didn't see when I decided to make the choice to flip off that wall was a big old stack of concrete pavers at the bottom of that wall, and I landed on them with my leg and knocked a. I'll show you a picture. Knocked a big old chunk. I told you I got all the pictures of injuries. Knocked a huge chunk of skin out of my leg, so much that I drove that damn truck. Here's the thing: my kids were so traumatized after the roof fall and after seeing me in the hospital get my head stapled together. The youngest one was still talking about it. He would still bring it up, and it had made my oldest kid afraid of heights, even though, nothing had happened to them. But it traumatized them. It upset them seeing dad in the hospital like that. So when this happened to me, I limped back up the truck. Of course, blood was pouring out of my leg. Told Joel clean up the tools. I had a towel I wrapped my leg up in. I took a picture of it and I called Rachel and I said, "Hey, I just want to warn you, I just got hurt at work. It's not it's bad, but it's not super bad. I'm gonna send you a picture, but I'm gonna come home. I think you should take me over to the hospital, or I'll drive myself to the hospital." Rachel's like, "No, come home. I'm gonna put a towel in the car for you when you get home. Just get in the car so the kids don't see your leg, and we'll take you over to the hospital." I drove that old diesel back to the house, and of course there was blood just dumping out of my leg in that truck while I was trying to drive it. And Rach, of course, met me outside, helped me get in the car, and by then I was kind of struggling to walk on it. It was pretty jacked up, and ugh, it was a mess. But they couldn't even sew it together. There was so much skin missing that they couldn't sew it together. I didn't have insurance. It wasn't like they was going to do a graft. So they just bandaged it up and dumped a bunch of antibiotics in it and told me to keep it bandaged while the skin filled back. It took like a year or something for the skin. It still looks pretty gnarly. I'll show you a picture of what it looks like now. That's what it looks like now after, how long is that? 2018 to 4, 5, 6 years now, and it still looks like that. It took a long time to heal. And it's always fun when you're going to be knocked out of work again because you injured yourself. You know, it gets to be a cycle sometimes. Most blue collar guys that do blue collar work and labor and construction work, stuff like that, they can tell you about it. Mechanics, you get a cycle every once in a while where you start getting hurt. It can cost you some money real quick, man. And I didn't have insurance. I was just getting my business started back up again. I had to go back to work on it pretty much as soon as I could manage to stand on it. You know, whoa, knew that was about to happen. Yeah, I had to go back to work on that thing just as soon as just pretty much, and it was pretty much Joel and me at that point. I talked to the owner of the property and told him pretty much that we were going to have to shut down the job until he could straighten the POA out or get them to act right, because it was just costing me too much money to be sitting out there waiting on this job I couldn't get to and get done. I don't know. The POA had a problem with that dude, and I don't know what all had happened before I got there, but they sure did not like him, and they were just pretty much going to not let him get his stuff done. In fact, I know. I know at some point they ended up pissing that dude off so bad he sold his house and moved out of that neighborhood. And he wasn't the first guy I knew that had to do that. Some of them HOAs, boy, they get greedy as shit. Most of the HOA crap's just a money grab, anyways. It started out being a thing about trying to keep the neighborhood nice and all that kind of stuff. It has not been that for a long time. And before that, most of the people, like, you have to understand, when I first started doing jobs and stuff out there, um, most of the people out in that area were actually like pretty wealthy. And I don't remember why I told you that. Whew, some hot glue. Like if you live around the lake, those people had some money, and the people with actual money are not a problem working for them. They're the easiest ones to work for. You agree on a deal, they set down a deal, and once you set down that deal, they stick to it. I had never had any problem with those type of people. Uh, and the other people that were out there were pretty poor people, and working for poor people's fine too because they pay like a slot machine. Poor folks just want to get once they got the money saved up to get something fixed, they just want to get it fixed. And they, you know, once you've got a deal in place, they're okay with it. You know, people without a lot of money and stuff, they're fine. The real problem is the area started filling up with people who think they have money, and those people are the people that think they're rich, the pseudo rich. They're the worst. They are the absolute worst. And that's what had happened. What had happened is Lake Conroe had become like overnight the fourth fastest growing home market in the United States. And it also, a lot of that coincided with the oil field not doing well. But these people were buying houses up there left and right. These people thought they had money, you know. But those type of people, the people that want to flash it around and tell you how much money they got, they're always a problem. Do not, if you're a contractor, stay away from them, man. Because they're the ones. They're the ones that are going to screw you on the end. They're the ones that are going to write you hot checks, take forever to pay you, piss and moan about every little thing. And it's like somebody went around and did a intro to Being Rich series and said the first thing you got to start doing is screwing your contractors over because, whoo, they were the worst about it. Them people that thought they had some money are the worst to deal with in that situation. All right, buddy, what's the matter here? Set you up over here. Arts and crafts on the wrecking yard. Ooh, there's a lot of cleanup. What I hate about hot glue. It's an absolute mess. Get out of my drink. Ask any contractor you know, though. Most of them know this already. Like, they're the worst to deal with. And that's what was moving in up there in droves. Also, what was happening in that little area was the oil field had taken a downturn a year or two before, maybe 3 years before, and a whole bunch of guys lost their cushy oil field jobs. And a whole bunch of those guys decided they were home builders overnight. And there was no regulation out there. So every Jim, Jack, and Harry who lost his gig in the oil field but had enough credit to go buy some equipment decided he was a home builder. And they were just using Mexican subs to build homes very poorly and very quickly. And they weren't worried about drainage or any of that crap. They were out there digging canals into the lake, and then they would just scoop that caliche mud up and set it on top of the bank and build a slab grade house on it. You know what I mean? Like, it did a year later, people having foundation problems. Like, what the hell? Your builder screwed you, man. There's so many lawsuits. I think that Montgomery court system stayed busy with builder lawsuits. And at the time, I lived in a gated neighborhood right there on the lake called Point Aquarius, and I had this neighbor. I don't know if I think I maybe have told y'all a couple things about old Daniel, but Daniel was a hoot, man. My neighbor Daniel, he was just this big old boy from Montgomery County. You know, just he drove a Jeep Wrangler, and all you could see when he was driving his Jeep Wrangler, my guys used to laugh so hard they called it grape ape because he'd come down the road in that Jeep Wrangler, and all you could see was biceps and arms and his little head tucked down there in them shoulders. He's a good old dude, but he was solid. He was a hoss. Daniel loved hunting. Daniel did landscaping jobs all over Montgomery County. I hope I haven't told y'all this story yet because this is one of my favorite Daniel stories. But at some point, right behind our house, there was a little green belt and like a little green area. And they had disc golf and some crap back there, but it was a bunch of trees and stuff. And at some point, because they were building so many subdivisions around that area, the coyotes started coming in the neighborhood and eating people's dogs and crap. Well, these coyotes become a problem. And a lot of these people use this thing called the Nextdoor app, and it's like social media for your neighborhood that's based in your neighborhood. Every day on social media on the Nextdoor app, there's women is on there crying, "Oh, the coyotes ate so and so's teacup terrier, or teacup Yorkie," and "Oh God, we got to do something about them." And then the men on there, "I'll get my 30-06, and I'll go down there and I'll take care of all them coyotes," and of course, not do shit. They just talk. "I'll come down there with my 30-30. I'll take care of them coyotes. I know what I saw." Then the women, "Oh no, you gotta take them somewhere else and find them a better place to live and relocate them." It was just nonstop for weeks while the coyotes were a problem. Every night I could sit on my back porch, watch them coyotes dancing around in the moonlight out there, raising hell. One day I'm at work and I had all kind of ladders and all that kind of stuff, and old Daniel hits me up while I'm at work. He says, "Hey, Bubba, can I borrow your extension ladder?" I said, "Hell yeah." I didn't think a thing about it. I figured he had a roof problem, some sort of shit. We just had a bunch of rain, thought he had a water leak. "Yeah, man, it's on the side of the house. Go over there and grab it. I'll let Rachel know you come and get it." Text Rach, "Daniel's come and get the ladder." No problem. Me and him were neighbors like that. We just, whatever. Whatever he needed, whatever I needed. He's a good ass. He's one of my favorite neighbors I've ever had. I like old Daniel. He was that neighbor you really did want to have a beer with and hang out. Boy, he liked to drink some Coors Light. That fella could take care of some Coors Light. I get home at night, I'm pulling down to my street, just to kind of give you, because I'm going to tell you another story about this. But our street looked like a T. We were at the end of the T, and it was Daniel's house and my house, and we were the only two houses on the flat part of the T. And then the rest of the street just kind of went uphill to the rest of the neighborhood and everything. But we were on a really high hill too, like we never flooded there. That was the weirdest neighborhood in that we lived in the poor section, the cheap section of the neighborhood, and the cheap section of the neighborhood was on a hill, and all the rich stuff was down at lake level. And every time it flooded, all the rich people got flooded out, but all those poor folks on the hill were fine. So I come home from work at night. I'm driving down that straightaway, and I knew quite a few of my neighbors there, and good folks for the most part. And I was coming down the road, and I noticed that my extension ladder is still up on Daniel's house. I said, "Boy, man, he must be having some problem. I might ought to holler at him, see if he needs some help with something." So I pull in the house, go do my thing, mess with the kids, all that good stuff. And I text Daniel and say, "Hey, man, you got a roof problem?" He's like, "No, brother. I just wanted to practice with my bow." And I was like, "Okay." I didn't think nothing. I knew he was a bow hunter, but I didn't think nothing else about it. Boy, later on that night, after kids got to bed, I got me a little glass of Jack Daniels, and as was customary, and stepped out on that back porch to watch coyotes and drink a little whiskey and smoke a little grass. Get my drift. So I fired my J up, standing out there in the backyard, and coyotes are just yipping and hopping around out there. And then I hear this weird sound. Stoop! And one of them coyotes hits the ground and starts flopping around like he's having a seizure. It makes a noise. And then I hear the sound again. Stoop! And another one of them coyotes flips on the ground like he's having a seizure. I don't know what's going on. I'm starting like, have I had too much to drink already? And he said, "What's going on with these coyotes? Are they getting a disease right in front of me?" And then I just hear, "Hey, brother." That's how Daniel talked. And I turned and look on the roof, and Daniel was sitting on the roof in full camouflage, like a Navy SEAL with the green and the black, and his bow and some broad tips on it. And Daniel has decided to take the coyote problem into his own hands. He shoots another coyote, and the rest of them run off. He comes down the ladder. He says, "You want to help me?" As we go out there, and he takes one of them coyotes that's bleeding, and he drags it all around that area and smears the blood everywhere. And then we grab the other two and do the same thing with them. They're dead by now. And then we drag him over to the side of his house. And he's like, "I'll get the landscapers. I'll get my crew to haul them off for me tomorrow. They'll haul them off out in the woods. Get rid of them for me." Jesus, who am I living next to? Oh, Bo Duke up there taking the coyotes out, man. Ah, shit. I like old Daniel. He was a good ass neighbor. One time, right after we first moved into that house, I came home one day, and Daniel's 16 or 17-year-old daughter was mowing my yard. And I was like, "What the hell's going on?" He goes, "Oh, she decided she wanted to mouth off and lie to her teachers. So now she's going to mow your yard and my yard and whoever else's yard I want her to until she don't feel like lying and mouthing off to teachers." And I don't know if it worked. I think she ran off and married a dude. But whatever. She's a nice enough girl. She mowed my yard. Daniel was real funny about Daniel would if I mowed my yard, Daniel was going to mow his yard. And one week, like we hadn't been living there a whole long time, and I didn't know Daniel that well that night yet. And I mowed my yard. I noticed he went out there right after I did, and he mowed his yard. And I was like, "What the hell, dude?" So the next day I got home from work. I just thought it'd be funny. I'd go out there and mow my yard again, make mine just a little shorter than this. So I went out there and mowed my yard again. He come home from work. I see him looking over at my yard. A few minutes later, I heard the mower crank up. There's Daniel out there mowing the yard. So I gave it a day. Then about a day later, when I came off work, I mowed the yard again. And sure enough, we go old Daniel out there. I hear that mower. Arr! But 2 days later, I get off work. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it again." So I go out there. I fire up the motor, and here comes Daniel pulling up the driveway. And this is when he introduced. He come over. So, "Hey, Bo, how many times you gonna mow that yard this week?" I go, "How many times you gonna mow your?" And he just started like, he knew I'd caught him. He knew I was screwing with him at that point. And he thought it was pretty funny. Whew. Man, right after we moved in that house, so on that T down there, when we first moved in the house, that house had been empty for a long time, and people would park their cars all in front of that house and in that house's driveway when they had overflow. And they got away with it because the house was empty for a long time. So we had all kind of problems when we first moved in. People trying to park in our driveway, blocking our driveway, and I'd have to go out there and tell people, "No, you can't park here. It's my place now." Yada yada yada. Was one dude kept parking his son's truck right down there, like, and it was so far up in like at the edge of my driveway that I would have to do this crazy ass 6 point turn to get my truck in there, and that's why I had the little Z71. But I never would see the guy doing it. I kept trying to catch him. I never would see him doing it. I didn't know exactly where he lived. So one morning, I just thought, I said, "You know what? I've just had it with this. Here's what I'm gonna do." I went out there and I wrote a really nice note, very polite note, saying, "Please don't park your vehicle here anymore. We're living in this house now, and it really makes it hard for us to get in and out of our driveway. And this isn't, you should be parking your vehicles by your home or park your vehicles where you live. Please don't park here anymore." And then I put on, because I don't like anonymous shit, I put on there my phone number and my name and said, "Please call me if you need to talk to me about anything, if you have any problems." Right? Just, I don't like anonymous crap. I wanted to put my name on, I'm like Ron Swanson. Put your name on it, tell them what you feel about it. But it was a polite note. This dude must have been three kinds of unhinged. I think he had personal problems and stuff going on at home, to be honest with you. I got home from work about 3 p.m. that day. I used to go in really early, like 5 in the morning. We'd work till it got really hot, and then I'd shut it down. But we just got more done when the weather wasn't crazy. I come home 2 or 3 p.m. one day, tired, just want to hang out with my wife, hang out with the kids a little bit, that kind of stuff. And that truck was still sitting there with that note on it. And I was like, man, I'm really trying to figure out who it is now. Who doesn't need their truck all day? And I think it was like a little ZR2 S10. I can't remember. It had some big. I heard it a couple times. They drove it off. Had some big old go to hell mufflers on it with like a V6. It sounded awful, like a coffee can muffler. But I never could catch the guy, so I left that note. Well, that day I get home from work and I ain't got nothing else to do that evening. We're about to start a big job the next day, and I've got all that lined up, ready to go, and my materials have been delivered. Well, I go out there on the back porch. I treat myself, have a little smoke, put my old loose basketball shorts on, barefoot and a t-shirt, just get relaxed. You know, a man needs to be comfortable in his house. Sitting down with Mama on the couch, and we start watching some silly movie or whatever, just enjoying a nice, rare afternoon off. I can hang out with her. The kids are napping. They're little. My phone rings. Who the F is this? I'm stoned. Excuse me? Yeah, that's my truck you left that note on. And he just starts running his mouth. He's hot. He's like, I tell you what, you come out here right now, I'll Huckleberry your ass right now. I'll Huckleberry you right now in the street. And I didn't know what to say to him because the dude was talking crazy. And so I just go, all right, dude, fine. He goes, I'm your Huckleberry. He says this, he screws this line up about 4 or 5 times. Tell me what all he's going to. I don't know if this is a euphemism at some point. I don't know what it's like to Huckleberry somebody. All I know is this dude's hot and yelling at me, and I'm about to go out there and have to deal with it. But like I said, I'm stoned as shit. So I go, dude, shut up and calm down. Give me 2 minutes to put my Crocs on, and I'll be out there. No big deal. And I was just very calm about it. I wasn't mean about it. I was like, dude, shut up, calm down. I'll be out there in just a little bit. Let me put my Crocs on. I remember I said, let me put my Crocs on, and he hung up on me. And I was like, what the hell, man? Rachel's like, God, he's been waiting like 25 years to use that line about the Huckleberry, and he screwed it up. We're laughing about it. I go, yeah, I don't know what this old idiot's problem is, but I ain't going to deal with him. So I walk off in there to the gun cabinet, and I got a little big small can of pepper spray, like what goes on the keychain. And I stick that can of pepper spray in my pocket. And I've decided I'm going to go out there in the driveway and talk to this fool. If he takes a swing at me, I'm going to let him hit me. And then I'm going to hose him down with pepper spray and beat the piss out of this old man in my driveway on my property. I've got a plan. Like I'm about to screw your whole day up, partner. I don't like the way you was talking to me just now. So I go out to the garage. I open the garage door's open. I go out there, and there ain't nobody out there. I'm like, where the hell's Huckleberry? I thought, and I knew what that guy looked. I'd seen that guy one time in the neighborhood. Kind of knew what he looked like. He was a tall, skinny, bald dude. I was like, where'd Huckleberry go? I thought Huckleberry was out here ready to fight me, you know? So we wait around for about 15 or 20 minutes, standing in the yard. I got pepper spray in my pocket. I'm going to hose this old dude down and whip his ass in the front yard and teach him a lesson. He never shows up. Damn. I go back in the house, shut the garage door, go back to watching my movie. A few minutes later, if we go back in the house, go back to watch a movie, we hear that loud ass piece of shit truck fire up, peel off and take off down the street, and they never parked that truck in my house ever again. And I never heard from that dude ever again. And I didn't know what it was weird, man. For like a couple of days, I couldn't figure out what had happened, and then I just happened to catch Daniel out in the yard one day, and he come walking up to me laughing. He goes, what the hell was all that the other day? I said, well, I left a note on that dude's truck. not to park it down there anymore. He goes, yeah, it's his kid's truck. His kid's a little asshole too. I said, well, I just left him a nice note, no big deal. But I left my phone number. I said, dude called me, hollered and screamed at me that he's going to Huckleberry me in the street, whatever the hell that means. And I came outside to get Huckleberried and see what was happening. I said, but honestly, I said, I was real calm with the dude. I said, hold on, let me put my Crocs on. I come out there. Because Daniel goes, man, what'd you say to him? Because he hung up the phone with you and he beat feet. I go, I just said, fine, let me put my Crocs on. He goes, you must have scared the piss out of him by being calm. He said, because that dude's a hothead and a loudmouth, but boy, he beat feet. He ran behind the houses back up, and I found out he lived like 3 houses up. He beat feet and ran behind the houses back up there. And then they didn't come down there and move that truck until after I went back inside. That old dude changed his mind about Huckleberry me, and it's just as good. It probably wasn't going to go well for him. Oh, and yeah, I think that's going to look pretty cool. Clean all the stuff off of it, and that old bugger could just hang there and show off my buckles. Pretty slick right there. I like that. I could have got them on there a little straighter. I got a little glue to clean that off of them. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. One project down, one to go. Anyways, Daniel hooked me up. Daniel used a lot of subs for his landscape and stuff. He said, if you need guys, because I was doing mostly foundation repair and drains and stuff like that, concrete. He said, if you need guys that can dig, you ought to use some of these landscaping subs because they're always looking for work when landscaping work's slow. And that's right around the time where your stuff really picks up. And I was like, sure, man. So he introduced me to this dude named George, Mexican dude. And George had a pretty decent crew. And I started using them rather than hire. I didn't want to hire guys anymore. It was getting to be a pain. George had some insurance and would show up at the beginning on time. And they did pretty good in the beginning. The subs are like that. You know, if you stay on top of them, if you don't, they'll screw you. You know, they'll steal from you. They'll get you every time if you don't stay on top of them. But if you stay on top of them, subs are pretty good way to run your business. But once I taught them how to build my drain systems, and they got really good at it, and these guys could knock out some big drains pretty quick. They were pretty good. They could build them effectively quickly, and they'd do them. I'd still have to be there to supervise, or Joel would be there to supervise them, tell them exactly how it needed to be, and make sure they stuck to the grade I wanted. You know, I'd get out there with an instrument, shoot a grade, and decide how much grade I wanted in the drain, where I wanted the drain to. And there's tricky work around the lake, you know. I can't tell you how to fix house foundations in Macon, Georgia. I can't tell you how to fix foundations in Colorado. But what I can tell you how to do is fix foundations in a little triangle of Texas that goes from about Dallas to San Antonio to just south of Houston, like Alvin. And in that triangle is one of the worst soil compositions in the United States. It is pretty much, a lot of part of it is called the clay pan belt. And it is just all these different, like 18 inches down in the ground, you're in clay. And it's all different kinds of clays. There's red clays and white clays and gray clays and yellow clays and caliche clay. And they all have different plasticity levels, you know. And plasticity just means like the ability, how much water the clay can hold and swell. If it has a high plasticity level, it can absorb more water and swell more and create more hydraulic pressure than a clay with low plasticity level. It's going to release the water faster. And, you know, these different clays have these different plasticity levels and they cause different problems. You also get these other things with clay called a water lens, where these layers of clay trap moisture coming from either underground spring or somewhere else, and it'll shoot it off way off somewhere else on somebody else's property, and it'll make it seem like you got an underground spring on your property. But what's really happening is it's draining off beneath the clay from somebody else's property. I dealt with a bunch of the underground springs causing problems like that. Whoo, boy, it's a booger to diagnose too. Uh-huh. Come on, Wells. Get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Oh, don't run out on me now. Not the king. We're going to get every last drop. Uh-huh. Clay kind of works like peanut butter. If you dry it out, it shrinks and cracks up and gets really small. And if it absorbs moisture, then it swells up and it creates hydraulic force and it gets bigger. You can, you can recreate that by taking a syringe and injecting liquid into peanut butter and watching how much of the moisture it holds and swells to hold on to. It works very similar. And the hydraulic force from clay swelling and moving will move a house all over the damn place. And one of the things I learned from working in the industry, and I worked with this engineer, this old civil engineer, for a long time, and he's one of the smartest people I've ever known. A guy named Ernie DeLuca. And what I learned from him is, like, if you got a foundation problem in this part of Texas, you have a drainage problem. That's what causes it every time. I don't know what causes foundation problems in Colorado. I don't know if it's shifting tectonic plates or whatever the hell, but if you got a foundation problem in Texas, 99 out of 100 times it's going to be because you have a drainage problem. I mean, it's rare. Occasionally it does happen at homes that are built on fault line. There's a really famous neighborhood that I cannot remember the name of. Glen Eagle, Glen, something like that. It's over in the Woodlands, and they built this whole neighborhood on 3 major fault lines, and every house in that neighborhood moves. They're a nightmare. You get calls, go look at houses in there, you knew this ain't going nowhere. These people ain't got the money to fix it, and these houses are being demolished. Basically, there's so much movement, and they just lost their lawsuit. They had a huge lawsuit, and they lost it. That show you how dirty things are in Texas in the court system. But every other time, go to the house, it's a drainage problem. And me and this engineer had cooked up these French drains, these subgrade, below foundation grade French drains that we had designed that worked really, really well. And they moved a crap ton of water, and they would dry it out and let a house situate. And honestly, it's basically just a version of an old school French drain. And they're really inexpensive to maintain. I'd put clean outs in them, and I could fix more homes with a drainage system than I could actually going in there and doing foundation piers. You put all the foundation piers you want under a house, but if you don't fix the drainage, that house gonna keep moving around, and the piers will start moving around. There's several houses I fixed without ever putting a foundation pier anywhere underneath the house. Basically, put a drain in that made the house settle down and stop jerking around, and then they could fix their drywall and go on with their life. And I made more money on the drains. There was a higher profit margin in them. The materials weren't super expensive, and it was easier to sell people a $5,000 drain system than it is to sell them a $30,000 foundation repair. It's easier to, you could make them understand that this could cost you 30 or 40 grand down the road. They go for that $5,000 fix every time, and it was a good fix. During that time, in an effort to build my clientele list back up after all the embarrassing stuff with Paul, I started going to these business network meetings. And a lot of towns have them. You just look on Facebook and search up the name of that town and business network. And there'll be a bunch of, there's some big money ones, like I think it's called BNI, and those are scams. I wouldn't spend that money on those things, to be honest with you. You see a couple people in those things make money, and a whole bunch of people just spend a lot of money paying dues. But the little local ones are where it's at. The little local free ones, that's where it's at. That's where you pick up clients, and that's where, you can move up in the group pretty easily, especially if you're a decent public speaker. They usually meet at a Golden Corral or Hojo's or whatever the hell, Ryan Steakhouse, and, some little family eatery. They'll meet there about once a week, maybe once a month, and have a big meeting. I think we're doing once every 2 weeks or something like that. And there's a lot of these little groups. I joined a couple of them. There's one I really liked. It was Conroe Area Business Network, where I made most of my friends. And they like to meet. We had a couple different meeting places. For a while, it was Golden Corral, about 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. And we all pitch our business ideas, and we talk about leadership and management. and we'd share information back and forth. And usually, one person gets to do a presentation about their business, and everybody switches names, and people agree to call you if they know somebody that needs the kind of work you do. Well, the kind of work I do was in big demand. You know, there's always a person there that makes business cards, and after they make everybody's business cards, they're not really getting anything out of the group. And there's usually a couple, multi-level marketing people in there with the it works and crap. And after they figure out who they can sell to, who they can't talk into buying the crap, they'll move on to the next group. But guys like me that were running tangible businesses and insurance guys, everything, they do really well in those groups. But I avoid the big ones. The big ones are basically a pyramid scheme. And if it was me, I wouldn't screw around with them. But the smaller ones were great, and I was getting a lot of work. I was picking up a lot of clients out of these things. But it's a little tip for tat. You still have to try other people's businesses. You got to be willing to participate. And I was fortunate because some of the groups I was in and really cool with, and I met some really interesting people that I'm still friends with. Y'all have heard me talk about Tim Moss, the wildlife expert guy. I met him in one of those business groups. And, oh man, I don't have everything I need to do that. I think that a bugger. Broke my glasses the other day. I'm going to try to Gorilla Glue them back together. Because I don't want to buy another pair of glasses right now. Because I'm cheap. Y'all have heard me talk about Tim Moss. Love Tim Moss. Another dude I met in this group is a guy named Bill Torvey. Bill was a hypnotist. He was offering hypnotism for losing weight, stop smoking, all kinds of it. He'd help people with fear of heights, all kind of stuff. Bill explained how hypnotism worked to me, about how the alpha waves work in your brain, and how we hypnotize ourselves almost on a day. You hypnotize yourself almost every time you're driving, because your brain decides to let the subconscious do the task it's bored with and doesn't want to do. And he'd explained all of it to me, and it seemed pretty cool. And you got to be willing to participate with other people in the group and do some stuff. So I thought, you know what, I'd like to quit smoking cigarettes. And Bill seemed pretty legit. Bill was an career law enforcement officer, and had learned hypnotism as a detective because they would use it with trauma victims to help them identify. It would help them remember stuff better, especially if they've been traumatized. It's. I'm sure you've seen some TV version of it, but it wasn't like all the ooh. Let me hold a whatever a watch in front of your face. It wasn't any kind of crazy like that. It had a pretty normal little office with a desk and a nice comfortable chair. I thought I'd give Bill a try because I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes at that time. Bill said he could hypnotize me and get me to quit smoking cigarettes. Well, I went over to his office one afternoon. I sat in a chair, and he started talking to me, and we started talking about when I started smoking and what all that was about. And just very nice, calm conversation. But he was getting some stuff out of me, and he told me he was going to do a regression on me. And so he did all the. It's basically like you go through a couple phrases and a couple stuff, and he explains it all to you, and then he hypnotizes you. And it's kind of a weird situation, but he does it just by talking to you. But it's not like you don't know where you're at or you don't know what's going on. You're very aware, but you're just very. It's allowing your subconscious to speak through you. It's kind of wild how it works. And he said he was going to do a regression since I started smoking so young. He wanted to know what spurred that. And it didn't take him long to find out the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid that I already told y'all about. By this point, I was well aware of what happened to me. And it didn't take him long to figure that was part of the triggers, and there was some other stuff triggering the way I approached cigarettes. And he used that opportunity to gear my mind towards the idea that I didn't need cigarettes anymore and I didn't want to smoke anymore. And it was really interesting. It's wild. I can't tell you that I believed into it when I walked in his office. I didn't tell you I believed in it after I did left his office. But I don't know if it's just because I also wanted to quit smoking, but I did quit smoking for about 4 months. Cigarettes. Well, I need to clarify that. You don't know. But something else happened, and this is the most important part. Was that night I went home and I started writing again, and I hadn't written much of anything since my mother died in 2013. I just kind of quit writing. I went home that night and I wrote a bunch of jokes in a notebook I hadn't picked up in a very long time. The next day at work, I caught myself writing more jokes. And something we talked about in his office unlocked some part of me that had decided to go hide when my mom passed. And if any of you have seen my stand up special called The Wrecking Yard, you've heard a joke, a story in there I tell about my mother calling me Chad while she was dying. Well, that's all based on a real story, but the day I wrote that joke was the day I came home from being hypnotized. And then a few days later, it was my turn to do a presentation in front of the business network. And I slipped that story. I slid that story in there about Chad. Now, mind you, this is a room full of 20 people in a Golden Corral meeting room on Wednesday at about 10 o'clock in the morning, bone sober. And I floored that room with that joke, with that story. Floored them. And something inside me reminded me of how good it used to feel when I would get on stage and do that. And I thought about it the rest of the week. I don't know if it was a message, but something got my attention. I didn't do anything about it that moment because I was too busy trying to build my business back up. I had a crap ton of work going on. But I did keep writing. And we did start, business started picking up because of those business networks. And Joel was here with me, off and on some jobs and other jobs that's just using subs for. But we started making a little money, started kind of get back in the pocket, get some money. And I decided I was going to get that truck fixed, but couldn't get any of them shops that, couldn't tell me anything. Well, it'd be 2-3 weeks. We got to get the injectors out, have them rebuilt, da 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 da. All this kind of nonsense. And I had this mechanic I used all the time for other stuff on my work trucks. And he said, man, I can do them injectors for you. I can do that CP3 and all that stuff. And he gave me the whole spiel too about he didn't know what I was going to take. And, I was kind of, these injectors is expensive. And I think he still cost me close to $5 or $6 grand. And I got the truck back and, for about 2 months, 3 months, that truck run pretty good again. And then it went right back to pulling all the same codes and doing all the same crap it was doing again. And all of a sudden, guess what? I got another phone number in my phone that don't work anymore. I drive by his shop was closed up. Like, I don't know what old boy did or he just shut down, but I was just stuck again. It's the way it goes sometimes. To this day, I'm convinced there's really only about 4 people who really know diesel. And I think everybody else are just incompetent thieves and hacks. I don't know who those 4 people are that really know diesel, but if you run across any of them, please send them my way. I'd love to talk to them. And the work was getting kind of sporadic for the jobs I needed Joel on. He had to go find himself another gig. I didn't blame him. He was a good hand. I missed working with him, but I didn't want to hold him back either. I was not in a good place at work anymore. I was writing all the time, but I was getting where I hated the business. I was dealing with all these pseudo rich dickheads and people wanting something for nothing and trying to get over on you on warranty work. And it was just, I was getting sued by one guy and I won the lawsuit because he was a moron. But it was just getting, I didn't enjoy it anymore. I wasn't enjoying. I wasn't working with Joel and old Moose and Cody and the boys I enjoy getting along with. You know, subs you can't really. You know, you just hire those guys to do a job. It just wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I was really frustrated. And it wasn't until Rachel like really said something to me about like she said something about the way I looked when I come in the door. She said, "You just look so angry all the time now." And one day I come home from work, and she stopped me on the porch and she took this picture of me. And when I saw that picture of myself, I keep that picture in my phone. I realized how miserable I'd become. Look at that guy. We A lot of us have been that guy. And I'm telling you, there ain't nothing worth being that guy. There ain't nothing worth being that. There ain't no amount of money worth being that guy. There ain't none. I don't care. I'll argue with you. Fight. Let's go. There ain't nothing worth being that guy. And I was that guy every day. So much in that any random day, my wife just stopped and took a picture of me coming up the steps, coming up the drive. And that's what I looked like when I was coming in the house to my family and my people I love. That's how miserable I'd gotten. And I pretty much just started running all the jobs myself and my subs, crews, and just using my shop to hold all my equipment and move it back and forth as needed. I had sandpaper pumps and all kind of stuff, concrete tools and all that good crap. And back early February, I had this really good customer named Diane Thomas. Man, she was met her through the business network, so she was a good customer. I'd done a drain for her, and part of the drain had clogged up. So I went. It was like early February, and I was just going to tackle it myself. I was just going to go over there and fix it myself. And sure enough, it was an easy enough problem to figure out, but I had to figure out reroute part of the drain so it wouldn't clog up again, and it would move a little more water out of their backyard. What it really happened is I didn't put a big enough drain in, and I needed to add some bigger intakes. Doesn't matter. So I went over there, did it, and at the time I've been doing keto for like 6 or 7 months. I lost a bunch of weight. All this time I'm riding my bicycle a lot. That's how I'm dealing with stress. I get up early in the morning, go ride my bicycle across the Willis Bridge, and that's how I'm just burning off anger and stress and trying to. And I was losing a lot. I'd lost 60 or 70 pounds, and was feeling really good and looking pretty good. And I remember I always felt like I got punished for doing this because I'd been so good about sticking to my keto diet. But I was on the way to Diane's house to look at that drain, and my secret guilty pleasure is Arby's roast beef sandwiches. I know everybody likes to clown on Arby's and say how horrible Arby's is, but Arby's roast beef sandwich is one of my favorite secret guilty pleasures. Not so secret now, but I love me an Arby's roast beef sandwich. I said, boy, I've been so good, I'm gonna stop at Arby's and get me a big old monster roast beef sandwich. I ate that sandwich, and my stomach had been upset for a couple of days. I just chalked it up to Crohn's disease. The Crohn's every once in a while rears its head, gets triggered. Well, man, I was over there working on her drain. Boy, my stomach was really bugging me. Really hurt. I was feeling kind of sick, and I was like, boy, you shouldn't have ate that. Shouldn't have ate all them carbs after you've been on keto. It's making, I'd read about people doing that, and I was like, you just screwed yourself, and had to have that Arby's, didn't you? Now your stomach's going to be jacked up all night. I got done working on her drain. I had another customer, that was a really good customer, call me, and she lived down the road from me and Rachel. She said, I got this hot water heater. It's a tankless hot water heater up in my attic. It's making all kind of noises. I know you know plumbing pretty well. Could you come look at it and maybe see if you can figure out what's going on with it? Maybe recommend somebody come over here and fix it for me because I knew a couple of plumbers I worked with. And sure, boy. I drove over her house. It was like 7, 8 o'clock at night at that point, and getting dark. Got up in her attic, crawled around her attic. Boy, my stomach was upset. But every time I stretched out on them rafters, I felt better. When I was all stretched out, his stomach wasn't hurting while I was looking at that hot water heater. But when I'd get doubled up, climbing in and out of the attic, boy, That's bothering me. And I called Rach at some point during the day. Said, "Man, I think I'm having a Crohn's flare up or something, but I'll take care of it when I get home." So I did. I took care of her. Went and checked it out. Told her she's gonna have to get a plumber up there. It was detonating, and I don't like messing with them gas tankless hot water heaters either, because I've seen some of them blow up and do some shit. So I was like, "You get you a plumber over here to check this out, and here's the plumber I use, and I'd have him come check it out." It doesn't look like it was installed correctly, and it wasn't. She had hired some little fly by night dude to install it. And I got in the house, I was feeling real bad in the stomach. I told Rachel, I said, "I think I'm having Crohn's flare up. I'm gonna go treat it the way I treat Crohn's flare up. That you treat a Crohn's flare up drinking a lot of water and smoking marijuana. That's how I treat Crohn's flares up." So I went out there in the garage and I got stoned like a gravel road, smoked a whole bowl, drinking water as fast as I could drink it, and it didn't work. Usually that would do the trick. Usually that would take the pain away and put a stop to it, and calm my stomach down and calm my system down. I mean, usually that old smoke will run that Crohn's disease off and tell it to take a break. But my pain just got worse and worse. I was like laying on the bed. Rich said I was growling at some point. I was curled up in a fetal position, holding my stomach and biting on my pillow because I was in so much pain. I don't even know. Like, she was trying to get the kids to bed, and she come in there and she said, "Hey, should I call an ambulance?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I think I don't need an ambulance. Just I think I'm fine." She was like, "Yeah, you seem super fine. You're laying on the bed growling and chewing on your pillowcase. It seems like you're super fine." I was like, "I don't know. I'm just in a lot of pain." I didn't want to call an ambulance. I don't know. She went to put the kids to bed a few minutes later. She comes back by. She said, "You sure you still don't want me to call an ambulance?" I said, "Good Lord, I thought you already called them. Why aren't they here yet?" By then, I was in so much pain, I was ready to get on that ambulance. You know what I mean? Everything I tried hadn't worked. I was stoned as hell, but in so much pain. But yes, please God, call the ambulance. And it's late at night. She's putting the kids to bed. She calls her mom. Her mom's going to drive up to Galveston. That's going to take a little bit. Watch the kids. And then we got the ambulance coming for me. And some of you know, they've followed me for a while. My youngest child is neurodivergent, autistic, and doesn't respond well to flashing lights and sirens and shit like that. Triggers him, and it's really scary. And uh, so we even asked the people on 911. We was talking to we did an emergency, of course, but we talked to them and said, "Hey, can you do us a favor? I know it's a while, but it's really late. And can you not turn the lights on? Can you not turn the siren on? Can you just meet us in front of the house? And I'll walk out there and meet you guys in the driveway so y'all can check me out and tell me whether I need to go to the hospital or not." And boy, I'm telling you, if that's not exactly, they pulled down that street. I think they turned the lights on, but they didn't turn the siren on. And I staggered out there. And this is where I want you to pay attention to this part of the story, because this will tell you the difference about the way I feel about doctors versus nurses and first responders and EMTs, firefighters, people that helped. They did exactly what we asked. They pulled that ambulance up. I walked out in the driveway, hunched over. I could barely walk. And there was somebody from the fire department there and two little old girl EMTs, little bitty old blonde headed things, just little bitty old things. I told them what it felt like. They asked me where it's hurting. I put my hand over where it's hurting. They said, "Do you got your appendix?" I said, "Yes." They said, "If you got your appendix, you got appendicitis." That little EMT girl told me right there. She said, "The only thing I see put big men over doubled in pain and damn near crying is appendicitis. Your appendix is acting up." And I said, "All right." And she said, it'll put big old boys down on the ground. She said, "I've seen it make grown men cry. You definitely got appendicitis." And the fireman said the same thing. "You definitely got appendicitis, bro." I go, "Well, I got Crohn's disease." He goes, "Yeah, but where your pain is radiating from, where it's localized at, I just telling you it's appendicitis." They helped me on the ambulance. And they got me on the ambulance and they shot me up with a drug I had never had before at that point, called fentanyl. Boy, fentanyl. Problem was I also hadn't bothered telling him I just smoked a whole bunch of weed. That fentanyl and that weed got together, started talking to me in my brain. Whew. It didn't so much like take the pain away. The fentanyl just distracted you from the pain because you were just high as a kite all of a sudden. And the pain was this little bitty thing way over here, and you were right to walk over there to find out what it was. And I was too busy in that gurney being stoned out of my gun. But I got like super paranoid too. And I thought I heard her say something over the scanner about a suspicious smell. And I was like, oh God, that firefighter smelled pot on me. He's going to call the law. They're going to come take my kids away. They're going to, in Texas, they can ruin your life, or at least where I lived then. And the assistant DA in Texas was just in Montgomery County was just the worst. And while everybody else was trying to decriminalize, he had doubled down. So I was freaking out. Like, oh no, oh God. Meanwhile, I'm in the ambulance. They're trying to take care of me, and I'm on my phone. I'm texting Rach now because now the fentanyl's driving, and I'm texting Rach, code red, throw everything out. Code red, law's on the way, throw everything out. And she's like, what the hell? We're almost to the hospital. She's like, what are you talking about? She goes, they've been gone for 30 minutes, and Mom just got here, and I'm about to head up to the hospital. So I don't know. I heard him say something over the radio. She goes, I think the drugs are messing with you. About that time, we pull in the hospital parking lot. The little gal's like, I'm going to have to take your phone, put it in your pocket. And I was like, yeah. Well, now I realize I walked up on that ambulance, but they've got to get me off this ambulance. And I'm telling you, these two little girl EMTs were about $1.10 soaking wet. There's just a little bit of nothing, each one of them. And I guess I offended them. I didn't mean to, but I told her, I said, hey, I can get up, I can walk off the ambulance. They're like, no, not while you got fentanyl in your system. We can't let you walk off the ambulance. I said, no, I'm fine. And y'all are just kind of small, and I'm worried about y'all trying to carry me. I'm a big old boy, and she must have got tired of me at some point. She looked me right in the eye. She said, it's fine, sir. We do CrossFit. I'll never forget that. It's fine, sir. We do CrossFit. Okay. And God Almighty, they must have been doing some CrossFit because they yanked me off that ambulance like I didn't weigh a damn thing. You know what I mean? I didn't know if there's a CrossFit exercise that involves picking up 290-pound dudes on gurneys. But if there is, these girls will be the champs. And of course, I'm already in my feels and weird about this because they took me to Conroe General and they've almost killed me once already, and I don't trust them. And doctor came in, she immediately starts talking about my Crohn's disease and how it's a Crohn's flare up. And I tried to explain to her that I've had Crohn's disease for a decade at that point, and I knew what it felt like. And that's not what's happened to me. I was trying to advocate for myself, and she's like, no, just let us shoot you up with some morphine. I'm pretty sure this is just going to be a Crohn's problem, a Crohn's flare up. Well, I don't trust this doctor now. You see this? She's already not listening to me. This is doctor for you. She's already not listening to me. She's already trying to tell me there's something else wrong with me. But I'm telling you, that firefighter and them EMTs told me right off the bat it's appendicitis, right? Because I just have more trust in nurses and EMTs than I do doctors at this point in my life. She's trying to argue with me. I don't want to take morphine now because I don't trust her. So I'm like, y'all aren't shooting me up with anything else until my wife gets here. My wife can advocate for me. I'm not taking nothing else. And boy, that little nurse, she was so worried about me. She was the sweetest little old gal. She said, baby, you need this morphine. This morphine is good. I was in severe pain. By the time the fentanyls wore off, they just gave me a dose to get me to the hospital. I'm back in bad pain, going out of my mind in pain. She's like, baby, you need this morphine. I said, as soon as my wife walks in the door, you can shoot me up with morphine. But until my wife is here and can speak for me, I don't trust that doctor. I flat out told her I don't trust that doctor. I'm worried I got to advocate for myself. This doctor already thinks she's right about something that she don't know what the piss she's talking about. Okay, that nurse. I kept telling her, just wait my wife. She's my wife. She's on the way here. Wait till my wife gets here. My wife gets here. So straighten all this out. I'll take whatever you want me to take, but I need my wife to get here. And let me tell you, I was in so much pain when Rachel walked in that hospital room and I put eyes on her. I looked right at the nurse. I go, "That's her. Bring me that." And she ran over there, dosed me up, buddy. After that, everything's kind of hazy. I just know that they did maybe a CT scan or something, and they come back like, oh, his appendix is trying to rupture, or it has ruptured. We're not sure, and we're going to have to do emergency surgery. We're going to do emergency appendectomy. But then the anesthesiologist saw how fat I was, and he come up talking to me, and he's like, "So you got high blood pressure and probably diabetes and stuff like that?" I'm like, "No, I don't have any of that." And he goes, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm 100% positive." You know, I was just in the doctor a while back with a busted leg and had some blood work done. I don't have any of that. I'm just fat. Boys, doctor, this anesthesiologist wanted there to be something wrong with me. This some bitch run every test he could run on me before this surgery. And you've never seen anybody so disappointed they couldn't find something wrong with somebody. I mean, he's just over here at his computer openly talking to me like, your blood pressure's good. Your EKG is good. It's not great, but it's good. You don't have any markers for even pre-diabetes, you know. And then I must have fell asleep in front of him and started snoring. He was like, "Oh, sleep apnea. Sleep apnea. That can cause dementia." Like, I never had anybody that wanted something to be wrong with me so bad in my life as this damn anesthesiologist, Conroe General, in 2019. This is early February 2019 by now. And then they come up with this crap. By then, I'm cooked on the morphine, but they come up with this crap about they need to shave my beard before they put me under for surgery because in case they have to resuscitate me, they're worried the mask won't seal right. Some kind of bullshit they cooked up. And Rachel said I looked right at her and grabbed her arms like, "Don't let them shave my beard. I don't give a shit." And she went back. Rachel advocated for my beard. Let me tell you, that gal went back and forth with them until they said, "Well, can you just trim it around the edges?" And they let her trim it. And of course, they didn't have to resuscitate. They did surgery on me, and it was fine. But I did. I was telling them in the hospital. I was telling Rachel, I was like, "Billy Gibbons just had heart surgery. Nobody shaved his beard." And they're like, "Who the hell's Billy Gibbons?" I'm like, "Rachel knows. He didn't shave ZZ Top's beard. He just had heart surgery. Why you got to shave Fatty's beard, you know?" But they mastered it. Yeah, Rachel had to cut it with some surgical scissors, and well, she had to cut a bunch of it off. I was not happy. Of course, I woke up for surgery. Rachel was there. I guess what had happened when they went in there, they did it laparoscopically or whatever that means. You know, with the little tools through the little incisions. But what happened when they was pulling it, when they were removing the appendix, it ruptured and leaked a bunch of gross shit inside me. And sort of then they had to shoot me with all kind of antibiotics. And if you have Crohn's disease, you know antibiotics and Crohn's disease don't mix. My body tries to attack antibiotics. That's what it thinks it should do. And so the more antibiotics I get in my system, the worse shape I'm gonna be in for a while. They really kick my I try to avoid antibiotics at all possible. You'll never see me take a Z pack for a cold or anything like that. I try I can't remember the last time I took antibiotics, but it's been a long time. But they just wrecked my system. Them IV antibiotics had me jacked up. I was in the hospital for a couple of days. They weren't going to let me go until I could poop. Boy, I was sure trying. I wanted out of that hospital. I did not want to be in that hospital. Finally, it was a Saturday or a Sunday. I was able to use the bathroom after being in there nearly a week. Rachel had been coming back and forth to the hospital. Mom had been staying with the kids. Rachel's mom. Now, this next part of the story, I got to give you a little backstory on. We had this little Jack Russell. So, sometime in the time me and Rachel was living in Althea, she showed up one night. She's like, "Oh, I got a surprise for you." And she showed up with this little dog her dad had gave her and had trained, named Tina, this little Jack Russell. And I was so mad at her that night about bringing that dog around because I told her that night, I was like, dogs don't live long enough. All they do is get you attached to them and they break your heart. I want no damn dog. And of course, within a week or two, that dog was hanging out with me all the time while I was home. Rachel was at work. And Then that was my truck riding dog. She's my truck riding partner. Early on in the beginning of the year, Tina had stopped eating, started having some problems about a month before this, and we'd taken her to see a vet. The vet couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, but the vet gave her some steroid shots, and she kind of bucked back up, but she never really was like eating right again. Like that dog was, that dog would devour anything, but all of a sudden she never got super interested in food again. I suspect what happened is she rallied. We've talked about that. Your dog's good too. She's my little truck riding buddy. You know. Anyways, while I was in the hospital, Tina got sick and stopped eating at all. And the day I was supposed to get out, that I was finally able to go to the bathroom and then get out, Rachel had gone home to check on the kids and couldn't find Tina. Found Tina in her cage, real weak and hardly able to move. And they had driven her to a vet, an emergency vet, as quickly as they could. And Tina died on the way to the emergency vet. And I was in the hospital still. Rachel couldn't do anything about it. She just left Tina at the vet. They were going to refrigerate her body until we figure out what we were going to do with her. She came to the hospital and she told me about it. And of course I cried because Tina's my little buddy. My little road buddy. She's a cool old mutt, man. Tina rode in all my pickups. That was a truck riding dog right there, man. And I never got attacked. I'd had dogs over my life, but I'm not that I'm not. I like dogs, but I've just never been in a position to get so attached to one. And I'd gotten real attached to this little girl over the past 13 years, and it broke my heart a little bit. And I cried, and I was very sad. And finally, the doctor I'd been waiting on for like 2 hours to come see me and verify that I pooped and I could leave and check out of the hospital showed up. Well, right after Rachel told me about Tina, and he was like, "Yeah, I see you went to the bathroom, da 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 da." And you could tell he just came from like the golf course. And he was telling us all this stuff, and he looked at me. He goes, "It's not that bad. You're going to be all right. You should heal up within the next couple of weeks. I don't want you doing any heavy lifting, and your system should. I know you got Crohn's disease and antibiotics, but you look like I'm telling you some really bad news." And I had to stop this doctor and go, "Well, there's no way you can know this." But I said, "My wife just got here, and I said, our little dog died this morning. And it's a dog we have for 13 years. And this doctor, I'll never forget. That's how you tell who people are, man. You talk about the dog dying, you see who people. That doctor's whole face softened. Man of science. The doctor's whole face softened. And he said, I lost my lab last year that I had for 15 years, and it still don't sit right with me. He said, "Let me get these nurses in here and get you checked out as quick as we can. I'm really sorry that happened today." And just like that, boy, they got me checked out of that damn hospital. Rachel took me over to the vet, see Tina. I went home, spent, if you've had surgery like that, it takes a little while to get back on your feet, 3 or 4 days, week, or whatever. Of course, my system was wrecked from all the antibiotics. And of course, we ain't making no money while I've been laid up. Didn't have no, boy, the bills off that shit were high dollar. Don't, boy, you get appendicitis, just go ahead. I told him the next time, like, boy, y'all should have shot me rather than sent me these bills. I can't pay these. Should have tried like that. I paid a bunch of them. But as soon as I was kind of back on my feet, work. In fact, I went and did a job for my brother on his house, and I had George and the guys working on a job for me as soon as I could get back out in my truck and go back to work. And I made a little coffin for Tina, and I went and picked her up from the vet, and we buried her. Had a little service for our little animal, and that's why when everybody's like, "Oh, I had a dog a stray show up a while back, and I was trying to find a home for it. And everybody's like, "That dog chose you. You got to keep it." I'm telling you, I'll never have a dog again. I don't want to go through that again. I just don't. Maybe it's selfish. I don't give a shit. I ain't never gonna have a dog. If you, maybe one day I'll have a dog. I don't know. I can't see it right now. I'm gonna do it a real selfish way. I'm gonna wait till I'm like in my late 50s and get a dog and be like, "Ah, ha, ha, you're gonna outlive me," or something. I don't know. I don't ever want to do that again. I don't know if I ever find a dog got as much personality as old Tina got. I wrote a lot about Tina. I told you I was writing. When I was in the hospital, I was writing. My little phone on my notepad. Sometime after that, Rachel and I go to a wedding in Houston for her cousin. And we were going to stay the night in Houston. We decided after the wedding was done, why don't we go see one of our old friends? Our friend Ryan Thalburn at the time had a bar called Darwin's. I'd been out of the scene for a while, and we hung out with Ryan. Of course, he was super happy to see us. We had a good night hanging out with him, and we left. And got us thinking about how much we missed our life in Houston. We had moved away from Houston because we were scared of Houston with kids and stuff. But hell, man, we lived out there in a gated neighborhood. My shit got broke into all the time. The gated neighborhoods, problems, all them people get of age and then their kids get of age and start raiding mom and daddy's pill cabinet. And there ain't no worse criminal than an entitled white kid with a golf cart. Fools were breaking around, robbing shit, stealing all kind of crap. And granted, I know Houston as a city has crime problems. I get that. I'm not a fool, but if you pay attention to your surroundings, a lot of times that stuff ain't a problem. We have not had a single problem since we moved back to Houston. But that night was kind of romantic for us. Like we missed hanging out with our friends, and we missed. And I told Ryan I'd been writing again. He said, well, we do an open mic here every Wednesday night, and you could just start coming down here. And I was like, well, I don't really want to listen to crap off the old Craig because none of them even hang out. He's this whole new scene, kids. They don't even know who you are. That appealed to me. I had this thing in my head all the time that people had told me the first time I went through comedy was that because I was friends with the club owner, that's why everything was going well for me. Not because of my talent or whatever, but because I was friends with this dude, and then me and Rachel were together, and she was running. It was just always something like that. And I started believing those people. Sometimes you believe people when they say enough messed up shit about you, and I started believing those people. The idea of starting over fresh appealed to me because I was like, well, now nobody knows me and nobody's my friend. And if I start doing it again this time and it starts working good again for me again, then well, I guess it'll prove to me that that was all bullshit. All that stuff, all them people were saying. That joke about my mom was my litmus test. I told Rach, I was like, if I can make that story about Chad, my mom, it was one of the worst days of my life. I told Rach, if I can make that story funny and make people laugh at that, then I'll know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm telling y'all, man, I'm telling y'all, every time I pushed really hard on my business, pushed really hard, it was like something would turn me around and push me back towards comedy. And this was a big push. At the time, Houston had also decriminalized marijuana, so you could not have to worry about losing your life over a plant that makes you happy in Houston. And that appealed to me too. And we came back from that wedding with ideas on our mind, ideas about selling the house, moving back to the city. Then we could be closer to grandma. I could be over here to help grandma with stuff. And it just was appealing to us. And I started, in between working and stuff, I started on Wednesday nights, I started driving down to Darwin's doing comedy. And of course, right off the bat, I was doing well, and people started booking me to do other gigs. And I was driving down to Houston at least once or twice a week to come do gigs. But this time, it wasn't like the first time in Houston where there was only a couple. But now there was places all over. Now there's a dude named Jesse Payton booking bar shows everywhere. And boy, Jesse can keep money in your pocket doing them bar shows for Jesse. A lot of people think a lot of things about Jesse Payton, and that's between them and whatever their mindset is. But me and him, for the most part, get along. And he was one of the people who really advocated for me and helped me when I first came back to comedy, and he booked me a lot. And I'm always be grateful to him for that, and grateful for the good times we had doing shows. But also, I started at the bottom again. I came to open mic. Nobody, Slade, me and Slade had a conversation. Slade's like, I saw you there one night and asked you what you were doing, and you told me you were just starting over with all new jokes. And I didn't call any favors. I didn't ask anybody for gigs. I started over and ran right through the open mic scene again, just as quickly as I'd done it the first time. And now I'm doing it part time because I'm working and all that stuff. But we start looking into selling our house. Got some equity in it. I had bad credit, so we had to pay a lot down. We raised a bunch of money, paid a lot down on that house. We bought it as a foreclosure. Of course, it was quite a bit more valuable now than it was when we bought it as a foreclosure. And I tell you, home market was growing. People were wanting houses faster than they could build them. And if there's any good time to sell that house, that was the time. 2019 was the time. And I told you I was frustrated with the business, and there was two jobs that really sent me over the edge. Did a remodeling job for a couple that I didn't realize had Alzheimer's, and this dude was a nightmare, tearing my work up every night, and he was just absolutely impossible to deal with. And that job, it cost me more money. I ended up losing about $7,000 on that job before it was all said and done with. After I got all the subs paid and everything. And some of them subcontractors had to pay to do their work 3 times because old Sundowner there would start wringing his hands and get worked up and start tearing shit off the walls, deciding it was done wrong. Alzheimer's guy had been a builder when he was younger. And we just got further and further in debt on that job. And then I was doing another job for a friend of mine, a guy named Don McCallum, that I still love dearly. Don's good people, but he had a big old piece of property out in Magnolia, and we were going to elevate his property with soil and soil compaction. And we had rigged up a system to do a rain collection and all kind of stuff. Give him a big bid, and we started doing this job. And that's when George really started letting me down. George, I think George was getting into the drugs a little bit, and George stopped showing up to work, and George stopped paying his own crew, and his own crew wouldn't work. And I had already paid George, but George hadn't paid his guys, and now I had his guys looking for me, telling me George wasn't paying them and all this kind of stuff. Very second or third day on that job, I got a backhoe that I had rented, not a little skid steer. Everything on that property is the worst property I ever been to in my life. It just eats dirt. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on there. I know a lot about soil and how soil works. There were holes on this property. I put 18-wheeler loads of dirt and clay into, and the holes just ate it. We got this. It looked like just this quicksand, bro. We drove this skid steer, and it just started sinking. It took me 3 days to get that skid steer out of there. I dug all around that thing. I had George's guys dig all around. It took us 3 days to get that daggum skid steer unstuck. And after that, I never took it in that part of the yard again. Of course, it's January and February. There's all kind of rain and stuff going on. And we keep bringing in truckloads. At some point, I'm out of money on the job. And look at Don like, I can't do any more for you. We've done, I'm not asking you for any more money or anything like that. But there's something going on here. And Don ended up buying a bunch more truckloads of dirt on his own dime. And I kept the Bobcat out there and rented it and kept working every day, drove over there and spent, can't see to can't see, putting dirt in a hole that would just disappear in a day or two and sink back down. We couldn't get any of that. I mean, we had already done all kind of side work and all kind of stuff, and we still. Don't get me wrong, the house in a lot better shape than it was before we started. But my God, that job did me in. That was one of the jobs that did me in. That and that remodeling job. I was so sick of the business by then. I don't want to deal. I don't want to deal with the customers anymore. I didn't want to do any of it anymore. My body was beat to shit. And I still had other smaller jobs I was making money on. I was running on the side, tree jobs, having tree jobs done, all kind of stuff. But my heart wasn't in it. I was already doing comedy again. That's where my heart was. My heart had found how good it felt to be on stage again doing my job. I think the real final straw was the HOA we lived in. They had fined us for a bunch of crap, and it was all just dumb shit. And I'd had to go back and forth with them, and they kept trying to screw us on it. And I was just fed up. I didn't want to live there anymore. I didn't want to deal with that crap anymore. I didn't want to deal with them customers anymore. That's how you Montgomery County was filling up with these pseudo rich jackasses who were screwing contractors left and right and looking for the cheapest deal and then get mad when they got the cheapest deal. There's nothing worse than some bitch that wants to cut corners and get the cheapest best deal and then get mad when he gets the cheapest best deal. That's the worst piece of shit on the planet as far as I'm concerned. Those guys do that shit and then they get exactly what they pay for and they cry and piss and moan about it. And I was just tired. I was fed up with it. I was burnt out. I didn't want to do it anymore. Work. It wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. And so we pulled the trigger. We sold our house. In fact, we sold our house for a lot more than we thought we were going to sell it for. They came in. We were thinking the realtor told us to list about 135,000, but then some other people came in and bought it for 165. We found us an apartment in Houston. I decided I don't want to do no more yard work. I don't want no grounds to take care of. I'll keep my little storage building up there and do jobs as I need to. But we made the plan. We're gonna go to Houston, then I'm gonna transition. I'm gonna figure out a way to make money at comedy full time. And at the time, I had written a show called Jerry Riggin with Jerry Wayne, and there was these people that were interested in it, and I thought we were gonna make this show. And granted you, this is towards the end of 2019. You don't have to be a history buff to know what's coming next. I started selling off all my big equipment, big pumps and stuff like concrete mixers and all that kind of crap. And a little concrete, had a little cart, little robot cart, and all that stuff. I started selling my crap off, trying to clean my storage out. And we moved to Houston in October. Boy, trying to park that old 3/4 ton Chevrolet in an underground parking garage in Houston was a trick, baby. That thing was about 40 foot long, it felt like. Boy, trying to get that in that parking garage to get parked was a bugger, man. And I still had some little jobs going on, but I was pretty much turning over. I had this dude named Gabby kind of working for me as a foreman by that point. And Gabby was good people. And I'd kind of made a deal with Gabby that I was going to sell him my trailer and let pay it off. I was going to give him a bunch of my wheelbarrows and shit like that. And he knew how to do a lot of my work. Like, go start doing it yourself, bro. You know how these drains work. And I had spent a lot of time talking. He pretty much only spoke Spanish, so we had to speak through his daughter, or I'd have to use like Google Translate to talk with him. And I mean, I knew enough work Spanish to get by with him, and so we kind of worked out a plan. We were finishing up some little jobs, and then Gabby was going to go take over and do his thing, take my tools and stuff. And I felt like I owed him that. He was a good dude. He had worked for me for a little bit at that point. Saved me when George had screwed me a couple times. Finishing one of those jobs, man. November 19th, 2019. You ever have one of them days where everybody's in your hair? Everybody's just bugging the piss out of you. Your phone's going off nonstop. And all day I've been running around trying to finish this little job in Conroe with Gabby and the guys. I was going to have to drive back to Houston at the end of the day. And all day I just wanted to listen to my music, man. I just wanted to listen to music. But all day my phone going off. People call me about gigs. People call me about work. People call me about all kind of shit. And I went over, I had a little storage building over off 1097. And it was just off on a little dirt road off 1097, a little gravel road. And there was a machine shop across the street from it, and Safe Harbor or something like that. And I was going to go over my storage and pick up some equipment and go drop it off to Gabby and the guys. George and Gabby and the guys were doing a job for me, and I was just going to go drop it off. Boy, all day people have been up my ass. I hadn't had a minute of peace all day. And I was driving down 1097 past our old neighborhood, and I was feeling good about the fact that we just sold our house and moved. And all that was just finally done. And coming down 1097, it's about 50-mile-an-hour speed limit through there, 45, 50, somewhere in there. And there's a Dwight Yoakam album I really like called Blame the Vein. It's one of my favorite Dwight Yoakam albums. And I've been wanting to listen to that album all day long. And finally, I had a moment of peace. My phone wasn't ringing. I used my phone for my music, my truck, and had a little phone holder right there. And I punched in my Dwight Yoakam music I wanted to hear. Boy, here it comes. I blame the vein. Put me at ease, man. I just need to hear some music. I'm a music guy. Come down 1097. I slowed down to make that turn. You have to almost stop. It's kind of a sharp turn. But start slowing down and make that turn on that gravel road. And right as I hit the brake and kind of pointed my truck like to turn in, something slammed into the back of my truck. I couldn't see it. I never heard it come. There was no screeching, no tire screeching, anything. Just all of a sudden the whole back of my truck shot up in the air. And I remember there's this crazy moment where I looked and all my tools were in the air and my phone was in the air. And I was in the air because the truck had been hit so hard that it ripped my seatbelt out of the floorboard and my seat. My seat bolts ripped out of the floorboard, and so did my seatbelt. And I was up in the air too. And the truck slammed into there was a big old ditch and embankment there, and the truck sideways slammed in that disc. And I went up under the dash and smashed my side and went all up under the dash of the truck, facing the dash and steering wheel. I didn't know what had happened, man. It's something hit you so hard that you don't know what the hell just happened to you. There was two dudes that had been standing out there smoking cigarettes at that little machine shop. They'd seen the whole thing go down. They're running. I pulled myself back up in the seat and was looking around, and they were running towards the truck. And I got out of the truck and I took a couple steps towards them, and the guy goes, "Holy shit, man!" And I go, "Dwight Yoakam," which he correctly did not know how to respond. he goes, "What, man? Don't you need an ambulance?" And I go, "Dwight Yoakam." He goes, "Man, wait." I was like, "I was trying to tell you I was listening to Dwight Yoakam. I don't know what happened, but I was listening to Dwight Yoakam." He's like, "Oh shit, yeah, you need an ambulance." He goes, "We got to check on that lady. That lady hit you." I was like, I thought I'd been hit by a concrete truck. I'm in a 2500 HD 4-wheel drive, long wheelbase diesel truck. 6,000 pounds ain't a hard guess. I thought I got hit by a concrete truck. I look over, I can't see what hit my truck, but there's a deep ditch on the side of the road, and kind of stumble over there and look off in that ditch, and there's a Chrysler. Was it a LeBaron? No. Some old Chrysler sedan, 300, something like that. 3,800-pound car. Ambulance shows up. they start helping the woman out of the car. She's an elderly woman. Apparently, what we figured out at some point was she started having a stroke while she was driving down the road and mashed the gas pedal and ran into me about 60, 70 miles an hour in that Chrysler. But I remember they were getting her out of the car, and she wasn't concerned about me, the person she run over, or the other person she hit. All she was worried about was her case of water in the car. She made the ambulance drivers take her case of water out of the car, put in the ambulance with her. Take her off the hospital. They checked me out. So I can't leave, go to the hospital right now. I got to do something about this truck, and I got this equipment. And so, of course, I had to call George and Gabby, like, y'all come over here and pick up this equipment, give them the keys to the shop, all that stuff. And give the tow truck driver the keys to my truck. It's tough, but we got all my tools out of it. And my truck, you can tell the frame's been on it right there. I mean, it's some 50 sitting cockeyed, and the bed's all pushed up. The cab's crunched up. I mean, she whopped the fire out of me of that Chrysler. It's jacked. The truck's jacked. Of course, Rachel comes, picks me up, takes me over to the hospital, gets me checked out. But yeah, I'm in pain all over the place. I'm all jacked up, but I can't tell what all it is. Well, what we got told later, and I don't know how true this is, but was a lady was having a stroke or a medical emergency stroke, some kind of shit like that, and the trauma of the accident stopped it. The impact and the airbag flying out and all that thing stopped it in its tracks. And I remember I was talking to the person that was telling me all this. I was like, you cannot tell people this. Do not tell people a traumatic impact stops a stroke, because well, there's going to be a bunch of dudes in the courtroom like, no, I had to hit my dad with a baseball bat at Thanksgiving dinner. He was having a stroke. He's having a stroke. I was trying to stop a stroke, you know. He started talking about the Federal Reserve and central banking. I smacked him with a bat and stopped his stroke right in his track. Anyways, ain't much more of that story. I will tell you, I hired the worst lawyer in Houston based on a friend's record. I had a couple friends recommend me the same lawyer. I'm sure at one time the guy was a big hot shot accident lawyer in Houston, but time I got to him, he wasn't that dude. He was a washed up drug addict with a little boy toy working in his office that I think he was spending all his money on keeping that boy toy happy. And he was a terrible lawyer, and I ended up losing my ass on that accident. Didn't hardly get nothing at the end of it. I think I walked away with about that. I think after medical bill stuff, I got about $8,000 or something. He screwed me so bad on that shit. And but he's the type of son of a bitch that sued me, so I ain't gonna say his name. But I sure tell you in private who to avoid in Houston. The one guy, for sure. Oh, yeah, I know they tried to totaled out that truck, and they told me they were going to give me $4,000 for that truck, and I was like, hell no, not after I done spent all this money on it. And bullshit, you're gonna give me $4,000 for that truck. Well, luckily I had a friend that was an adjuster for Allstate, and he told me, he's like, look, he said, stay on them, man. You might get 7, you might get 7.5 out of it. That's probably all you're gonna get. He said it is an older truck. It's considered high mileage, even though I know it's low mileage for a diesel. He said they're gonna go out there and check it out. They're gonna tell you it was only worth this. And sure enough, they tried to tell me the transmission was bad in it, and transmission hadn't been serviced, and that the engine was all this crap. And I was like, no. So here's what I did. I just refused to give them the title. Every time they came to me with an offer, I said no. I didn't have anywhere to be. I was all jacked up from this wreck and going to physical therapy and shit. Had a loaner truck at the time, and said, no, I ain't taking your truck. And I turned the loaner truck back in. We were just operating out of Rachel's Yukon. And I'd go up there and run some jobs with it in between physical therapy and all that stuff. Final jobs we were kind of wrapping up. Every time they sent me an offer on that truck, I said, no, hell no, I ain't doing that. And they finally ended up offering me about $7,500 for the truck, and I took that. I took that $7,500 and I took 6,000 of it, and I went and bought this Cadillac SRX for my wife. So I wanted her to have a nice little city car, something she could run around in. It wasn't so hard to park like that Yukon in the city. If you've driven in a downtown area, Yukons, big trucks, they're not fun to operate down there. And she didn't need that kind of thing anymore. We weren't out in the sticks anymore. And I just took over the Yukon, and I'll just drive this son bitch till it peters out. I don't remember how many. Yukon's a whole nother story. That Yukon was a good ass truck. 2007 GMC Yukon. That was a good damn truck. Yeah, they gave me about $7,500 for that truck. And I kicked myself knowing what they're worth now. Wish I'd held on to that son 50. Boy, I'd be like one of these Dodge guys out here delusional trying to get 28 grand for it or some shit. Meantime, I'm still doing a bunch of comedy, and my comedy career is taking off, bro. I've got gigs booked all around the state. I've got gigs booked in other states. We're gonna make a go of this shit, Of course, if you follow the news, you know what happened in March 2020 is the president come out and made a big speech about social distancing. I did one of my first sold out gigs that night. I was driving home in that old Yukon, and boy, my phone just started going off. Text message after text message of canceled gigs. Every bar in Texas was shutting down. Every venue in Texas was being told to shut down. $20,000 worth of gigs. Like they never existed. Like they never existed at all. Just gone. Had some deposits for some gigs I got to keep. But it was an uncertain time. I just basically sold my business, sold our house, moved to Houston to pursue comedy full time. And the one thing that could shut comedy down showed up in March of 2020 and shut comedy down. I think we'll wrap that up right there. Let's do some comments. And I'm prepared. I'm prepared today. Look at me. Look at old prepared Jerry Wayne here. At Paul Killer. The garage is awesome. I like everything from the hatchet to the picture deal. Well, thank you, Paul. I like it all too. I got a box full of stuff here that you're going to see, and I'm going to find a place to hang my belt buckles. And it's going to be a little bit of an in progress. I want to do something with this area, move my dowels to a more organized place where they're easier to do. Go hatchet. Yeah, man, we're gonna do some changes, but it's getting there, brother. It'll be a living truth for a little bit. I don't know if you noticed. It's Corvette o'clock, baby. It's Corvette o'clock. Old clock working pretty good. That is the correct time, whatever shit it is. What is that? That clock's not right, but it's also always that time. That clock is right. And that's how I feel about time. I don't really need to. I suspect it's almost 9 o'clock. It's Corvette o'clock here. At Lacey Joseph, 5239. No lie about that Pentecostal life being hard on women. It wasn't for me. Yeah, it is stuff. In a church like that, it seems like the women are second class citizens to me. It seems like a hard life. At least that's what my mom always told me. And she used to tell me to get away from it. Regardless of whatever decision she made at the end of her life about religion, that's none of my business. But she spent a large part of my life telling me to get as far away from it as I could. At least that brand. At Smurfette11588. I work as a traveling mechanic in Chicago, and every Monday I hope for service calls so I can listen to the wrecking yards I drive to / between jobs. It's become one of the highlights of my week. I'm also a long-time VW nut. Looking at the pictures, my approach would be hang a replacement left door, then use a porta power and concentrate on getting the door jamb back in shape first. Then opening the windshield back up so you can install a windshield. With windows and doors, I see no reason you wouldn't have an automobile again. The rest of the damage you can leave and call it custom patent and chalk it up to the car's history / story. I responded to you, but I cannot thank you enough. You gave me some hope. I was feeling kind of defeated, to be honest with you, when I saw exactly how bad the car was. It took some of the wind out of my sails, and that's a really excellent suggestion, and I appreciate it. That gave me some hope because I was feeling too great about it. Thank you for that, Smurfette. All right. Tell you guys all the time I'm rooting for you. Hope you know I am. I really am. I tell you that every week. I'm rooting for you. I feel like now I should change the name of this episode to Man Makes Plans and God Laughs. I've heard that said before. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who to attribute the quote to, but Man makes plans and God laughs. That's all of 2018, 17, 19 for me. In the early part of 2020 with the pandemic, I mean, everything I thought was ruining me ended up being a blessing in disguise. Stuff with the business, stuff with the truck, all that stuff. It got me out of that truck. Everything I thought was ruining me turned out to be a blessing in disguise. But it was like, and I'm not, I'm not super religious, but I do have some beliefs. And my belief is that every time I strayed off the path I was supposed to be on and started pushing too hard in another direction, the Lord not so gently shoved me right back. So I was doing the thing I'm supposed to do. And since I let go and started falling into that, my life's gotten a lot better. I'm more peaceful. I'm more happy. I have a better relationship with my children, my wife. I have a better relationship with my loved ones. I'm not so angry all the time. And the financial part's finally starting to get a little better. I ain't going to tell you it's all roses, but, it's a lot better than what it used to be. Everything I thought had ruined me ended up being a blessing in disguise. Man makes plan, God laughs. So I took the money from the LB7 and I bought Rachel that caddy, and she loves that little Cadillac. It's been a pretty good car. I took the Yukon and thought I was still doing some jobs here and there. I mean, at some point during the pandemic, there wasn't no jobs to be doing. I just started making videos, making fun of boots and trucks on the internet, and here we are. Here we are. Career revived, doing well, booked at the biggest club in Houston, doing stuff for Hot Wheels, and collaborate with other people. I'm about to go on my Christmas tour with William Lee Martin. We're going to go all over Oklahoma and Texas. Then I got a Texas tour in January. Then we're going to do a Northwest Pacific Northwest tour, and we're running a show in Louisville. Got a podcast, book deal. Something be said for letting go and letting yourself be pushed back what you're supposed to be doing. Same thing I tell y'all every week. I'm rooting for you. I hope the things in your way get out of your way, or I hope you find a way around them. And if there's anything you can glean from this episode, it's this. Not everything that bucks up against you and causes you a problem is the end of the world. I'm telling you this because guys like us, we hit a lick every now and then. Stay the course. Piss on the LB7. I blame the vein.